Grow, Sell, and Retire is the podcast for the lazy overachiever. B.D. Dalton, author of True Gravity and Grow, Sell, and Retire, is here to give you his 25 years of secrets, tips, and systems to take your business to the next level. This is your chance to find out what is working in sales, marketing, and running your business. If you stop learning, you stop burning. Now, here's your host, BD, with today's GSR podcast.
Hey everybody, BD Dalton here from the Grow, Sell, and Retire podcast. Today my interview will be with Erik Vermeulen, and you probably haven't heard of him. He's very, very popular in lots of circles, but guess what? He knows how to take the future, take business, put it all together, make things happen. He's worked with governmental bodies, the UN, the World Bank, things like that. He's written books all about decentralized information, making technology accessible to companies. He's also with one of the biggest companies in the world when it comes to lighting and electricals. He is a professor at a university. He has a list of things that go on and on and on. You would have seen him on Medium if you follow people out there that are talking about the future. He's best described as a global futurist and a cross-culture strategic consultant. Easy for me to say, but basically, this guy, Erik, will be able to walk us through whether you need to be cutting edge, you need to be bleeding edge, or what I like to call guiding edge. So making sure that you're doing the right stuff and applying yourself, your resources, and everything else in the right direction at the right time for the right amount of energy, time, and focus. So get your pens and paper ready to talk about the future, to talk about business, and listen to my interview with Erik Vermeulen. So we'll talk to you soon. Sit back and get ready to listen to some great stuff about the future. I have Erik Vermeulen here with me, and we'll have seen from the show notes and everything else that he's got a great, amazing resume. So this should be really good. Welcome to the show, Erik.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And tell me, so when you look at the whole thing, that you get listed as a global futurist. What does that mean?
God, man, I just don't know. The thing is that I do many things. So basically, I embrace the gig economy. I think that's what it is. So I wrote I write a weekly blog. I think 2 weeks ago, I wrote something about this. It's a kind of a weird life, unconventional life that I have. So I'm both an academic, but I'm also a practitioner. I'm an advisor, and I really embrace the digital technology. And from that, you get, so many questions. You have to speak so many events. And I think that makes you a kind of futurist. You really start to understand what the digital age means. And I think that's what the global futurist is. But I don't like the word too much. So I think I'm more like a digital expert.
Very cool. Better. So, and if we kind of track that back, you're actually probably more pragmatic than what most futurists would be, or whatever people would consider themselves to be, is having a basis in law and scholarly stuff. So what made you then take that into practice, and what do you think that's made on your business or on your life? The basis in an actual profession like law or business when you're teaching people. What happened was that I was just a law professor, and at one point, I think I'm also a practitioner, and at one point I was invited to help set up a venture capital fund, and that's where my interest in innovation started. Because then my network, with the venture capitalists and with lots of entrepreneurs, and I went to these pitching events and demo days. You really see what the digital transformation, what it means. And in 2016, so I'll take you back now to Christmas 2016, actually, I realized that we are at the crossroads. Yes.
So we can go left, and that's the old world. And but that's a dead end to me. So it's better to go right and embrace digital. And what happened actually was that, I love Christmas, right? It's the most wonderful time of the year. And the reason is no emails, no nothing, so I can just do my stuff. And I figured out, I'm a law professor. I'm specialized in corporate law. And I figured out that there was something like, the decentralized autonomous organization. And I was thinking a lot and discussing a lot of the corporate governance issues that we have in life. So the investors cannot trust managers, that stuff. And then I saw that technologists, they said, well, we can solve that problem by just getting rid of the managers. You automate the managers, basically. And they created the decentralized autonomous organization. They did it in 2016. It kind of failed, but it made me realize that what we do as lawyers is we basically created two parallel worlds. On the one hand, we have the old stuff, and that's what we do as lawyers. But then there's some other things going on that will affect our lives. And then I realized, well, if this is happening, I have to let my students know. Because I have to prepare them for the new world. And that's where I realized that we are at the crossroads. On the one hand, we can go left, that's the old corporate world. But when you go right, there's so many exciting things going on that we cannot ignore anymore. And they are here and they will not go away. So there's no turning back.
So that's
what made it exciting. And then I was telling my students, and my students got excited. They started to write on it. And then I hired some of my students, became my assistants, and they love this stuff. And they went into insure tech and legal tech. And all of a sudden you create a whole community. And then you see the magic of social media. You see the magic of having a community. You see the magic of having a flatter world. And you see the magic of digitization.
That's awesome. And so then that kind of all that stuff coming together. So then is that when you kind of came up with your platform, the Governance Tomorrow? Is that where this stemmed from, or did that?
Yeah, that's where it came from. Yes, it's all, we have to reinvent ourselves. It's we have to see how let's say digital technologies, how they are going to affect our, the future of work, the future of business, the future of education, the future of law. It's basically what I do, these four things. And then you realize that, the way we educate the next generation, that's not good either. So we assume they grow up in the digital age, but they don't really know what it means and how it will affect organizations and society. So that's why we have to teach them and get them ready for the digital age.
Because they might come through and just hack out all the middle managers and call it good.
That's if you look at what's happening, basically the 3Ds of digitization, I call them. You have decentralization, disintermediation, and disruption. It's already happening, and it's not a bad thing, but we have to be prepared. Because the problem is that we dealt with innovation a lot, right? So yesterday I came home from Paris after a long day, and I watched the television. There was something about the 90s in the United States. And they said, well, there they realized that the world was being built on zeros and ones. So they talked about the internet in the 90s and how the internet changed our life. So we did not have to go out in the world and see things. The world would come to us, right? We just sit at home and we had the internet, and that was fabulous. And I think, yes, that changed our lives. But what's happening right now, it's even more worrisome in a way, because we have now artificial intelligence, we have the Internet of Things, we have blockchain, and all these technologies are amplifying each other. And the opportunities that will be created are huge. We don't even know what we can do in the future. And that makes it so interesting. So we cannot sit back and relax and just wait, because that could hurt us. But on the other hand, because we have all these opportunities, we can get rid of the middlemen. I would say, well, we can get rid of procedures. We always followed a predetermined path of procedures and processes. And now we see that we can automate that, which gives us more time. And that's why I think we can all become entrepreneurs because of the technology. But that means that I have to teach my students how to be creative. And what we see at many universities, that we take all the creativity out of the students. We teach them all the processes and procedures, but these are irrelevant because they will be automated. So we have to teach them something that they can actually use. We have them to learn how to work with machines and how to be smarter than machines.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing that we would talk about. And everybody comes out now and they have a sheet of paper and they have some grades and some technical skills, but they don't know the people skills. They don't know how it fits in with each other, and it's a hard thing to instill in somebody that's coming in expecting to be paid X amount because they have a piece of paper that says that they're a lawyer or an accountant or...
Yeah, and that's not enough anymore. So, for instance, at my university, I introduced a course, Coding for Lawyers, and, the interest is like amazing. Many law firms contacted me. They all want to do the course. And I don't want to make my lawyers... people sometimes misunderstand me and think that I want to make, coders. But my lawyers will never be coders, but I want them to understand and be able to communicate with technologies, because I think if we want to create a really good world in a digital age, we need to collaborate more. So both the technologists and non-technologists have to work together.
So that kind of brings me to my next question is, if we can't get those people that don't want to, people get, I was even this way probably about 2 years ago. I didn't want to know about blockchain. I didn't want to know about cryptocurrencies. I have a law firm, but I also have a financial advice firm, and Bitcoin and everything else. If that's crypto, which now, I've been educated a bit, but it's, that seemed more like gambling to me than an investment or a currency. So the people that don't embrace it, how long is their lifespan? So the old lawyers that come out, or young lawyers now that come out thinking it's the law is the old way, what's going to happen to them? Just kind of in your opinion, as a generality.
Yeah. No, I think, okay, let me start. We always had to deal with innovations, and some people embrace it and some don't, and that's fine. When we had the first color television, my granddad refused to watch it because he thought black and white was good enough. But after 2 days, he hated these shows that were only broadcasted in black and white. So the thing is that if you don't embrace it, in the short term you might be okay, but in the long term that will be worrisome. And the idea is that what scares me is how all these new digital technologies are accelerating each other and amplifying each other, and basically creating a new world. So to give you one example, I hated social media because, my wife was on social media. She was on Facebook taking pictures of me, and she was looking at her phone all the time, and she didn't look at me. The only thing she did was taking pictures of me and sharing that with the world. And I kind of hated it. But then I realized, if I don't become active on social media, why am I writing my articles? How many people read my articles if I just publish them the old way? I can tell you 3 or 4. And I think that's not what I want to do. You want to create legacy, right? You want to be visible. You want to start a dialogue with people. You want to be part of the community. And then I realized, the only way to do that is through social media. Now I use Medium, I use LinkedIn, I use Twitter, and through that, you really create a dialogue. We created this. This would not have happened. This podcast, I would never have been part of this podcast without Medium. And that made me realize that social media is so important. Now, the same thing with ICOs, with Bitcoin and blockchain. I think we cannot stop it. I think Bitcoin made it kind of accessible to all of us. So now we start to talk about blockchain more. You can compare it to the Ford Model T. So it's maybe it will not be mainstream, but it definitely started something. And the whole idea and what we can do with blockchain technology, particularly when it's going to work together with the other digital technologies like artificial intelligence and in the Internet of Things age, I think it will be mind-blowing. And I think it will definitely be bigger than the Internet. Yeah, so yes, you have to embrace it. That's what I do. And yesterday I heard something very interesting about ICOs and coins. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize it. I always thought, it's replacing venture capital in a way, right? It's replacing the old traditional ways of financing a company. But yesterday I learned that for some companies it's the only way to get funded. So it creates also something. So if that's the case, so this was for a clean tech company and they had some open source platform. No venture capitalists would be interested. The only way for them to get money was through, by getting grants. Now getting grants, that's very painful. That takes years and a lot of paperwork. But with the ICOs, they were able to attract money and build their platform. And then I realized, okay, so this is something new. We experiment, we test, but we cannot stop it. We cannot stop it.
And for the people that don't know that out there, ICO stands for?
Initial coin offerings.
Perfect. Okay. Just because
sorry. Yes.
No,
sure.
no, it's okay. It's I knew where you're going. I just wanted to make sure that people out there knew what was happening.
Everybody's on the same page. Yes.
Correct.
And many people think this is betting and it's a hype, and probably it is. But we should also realize that this is for many companies the only way to get funded, and I think we have to understand it. So to close this, so I work here, I live in Eindhoven, the Netherlands, and we have this startup ecosystem, and they asked me to do a report, to write a report for them and to see what's happening. And I said, well, you don't pay any attention to these new ways of funding companies, and that's wrong. I don't say that we should all do ICOs, but we should understand that we should be part of the whole discussion. Otherwise, you will be left behind.
Yeah, and I think but just like with any investment, people just need to do their research and then figure out how it works. And if they're going to participate in that, most people that are participating in that stuff kind of understand it anyways, but they still have to understand how it's all coming together. So but it makes perfect sense. People would have, wouldn't have done their banking on their phones 15 years ago. But now it's
the same thing, right? Internet banking, most people like 10 years ago say, oh, no, I would never, ever do that. That's not safe. And now it's the only way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I use and whether you like them or love them, I use Apple Pay all the time. I use, it just makes my life easier. I don't have to carry.
Exactly. It's the convenience that we
anymore.
And that's what I mean with people will be left behind. We this crossroads, we go to the digital age and we all want it. It's the consumer that wants it. It's the convenience that we want. It gives us more time. We don't have to deal with all these processes. Making a payment in the past, I remember you had to write something, have to post it. Now it's just 30 seconds and it's done.
Yeah.
I can do some more interesting stuff.
And it's going to be even, as we're talking about with blockchain, it's going to make it so much easier for transactions to happen and documents to,
probably, yes.
In the legal profession, it's going to change our world, isn't it? It's going to make it so that a lot of contracts are actually just going to be a digital.
I think we are going to digitize law contracts more and more. And that's not a bad thing. I read a lot that people say, well, this will be the end of lawyers. That's not true. We have to work differently. So we have to teach them to work differently and think differently. And that's why I introduced, for instance, coding for lawyers.
It's awesome. And and you were alluding to it, and somebody else had said something about ergo acceleration, and you were saying that we're just making ourselves smarter by using our brains and focus for the things that we don't need to waste time on for the processes. So the standard operating procedures are now handled by technology, AI, or whatever else it is. So
exactly. And it makes the world just faster. And there was somebody sent me one of my co-authors. He sent me a nice quote by Jeff Bezos, who said, well, in old companies, when they want to innovate, and a young executive, he has a good idea, he has to get a yes from his boss. His boss needs a yes from his boss, and you just continue, right? This is a hierarchy. And if somebody in that hierarchy says no, it's the end of that innovation.
Yes.
And that's wrong. So if we can have flatter, less processes, we might have more innovation. And to be honest, I mentioned to you that I embrace social media now. I've never been more creative in my life than I am now. And the reason is because, you write something, you post it, and you get immediate feedback. In the past, when I had to publish something, seriously, it can take 3 years before they actually publish the article. That's not good.
No, especially not for technology.
No, what are we doing, right? So it's much better that you let the market decide. And that's how you create a legacy.
That's awesome. So when we talk about lawyers, we talk about this. So, and I know you have a law focus, but when you really start to see some jobs going away and being replaced or having to become more efficient, what are some of those other jobs besides law that you see people needing to focus away from?
I think that the answer is very simple. I think all the jobs where we deal with standardized procedures, standardized processes, I think they will be automated. And I think everybody should look at their job. And a lot of stuff can be automated. And the thing is that because I asked my colleagues and other people, they all want this to be automated because it's the boring part of their work. Mm-hmm. But that means that you have to be more creative. And as you mentioned, soft skills and other skills become much more important. And we have to focus much more on education on these skills.
That's really cool. So, of all these changes and all these things, and I don't know if you're a big Star Trek or Star Wars fan or anything else.
Oh, yes, man, of course.
But Star Trek, I mean, it's almost everything that is on Star Trek that seemed, besides and even space travel, all seemed like such a far-fetched thing. But now we're teleporting things, and we're teleporting. Now it's only molecules currently, but we're doing almost everything that was on there that would never happen. It was all just a figment of Roddenberry's imagination. Is actually happening. What's your favorite kind of, oh my gosh, I never thought that would happen moment since kind of kid till now? What's your favorite little bit of technology that you've seen that you're thinking that never would happen and you've seen it happen?
This sounds weird, and not many people will agree with me, but I have the iPad Pro.
Yes,
and that's my favorite device. Actually, I use the other iPad, but I didn't really use it. But since I have the iPad Pro, it's big enough. I basically do everything with this thing. Whenever you travel, you are connected. And I was mentioning it to somebody else this morning. My first big trip was to the US for 3 months. And the only thing I had was the Sony Ericsson dual band. That thing was huge.
Yeah, it was.
Right now, I have an iPhone or whatever, a Samsung or another smartphone. You have all your songs there. You can, watch videos. You can watch Netflix. That's like mind-blowing in a way. And then we all think it's normal. But back then in 1999, if you would ask me, I would say, no, that will never happen. That's kind of Star Trek. But it happened.
Yeah, it's amazing. My kids will never know, and I've got a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old, and they'll never know that you had to actually go to a store to rent a video.
No, man, that's
even 10-year-old will not know that we had to go down to Blockbuster because they wouldn't have, they wouldn't remember that almost.
Yeah, and if you want to have a really new movie, they gave you a kind of very bad quality thing that you were watching at home. Jesus, we cannot go back to that. Cannot even imagine, by the way.
Yeah, it's amazing how it makes our lives that much richer and better and everything else.
Yes. And I think the future will be even more interesting because we really see an exponential growth of technology. And I don't know. I cannot predict what's going to happen, but it will create lots of opportunities. And the only thing that I want my students to understand these opportunities, so it can help them in making their careers.
So in your world, if you could get rid of one item or action that's happening out there that technology might replace, what would you get rid of?
Yeah, I mentioned it already. I think it's standardized processes and hierarchies.
Oh, so just the boring stuff, basically, and making.
Yeah. But if you look accessible. But this when you say this, it's 90% of your work.
Yeah, it is. But if you could make that 10% much more. Cool, creative and amazing, you'd have so much time to do awesome things. So that's very cool. Okay, so now we move on to kind of the fun stuff. You kind of put in there your favorite piece of tech, but what type of goals do you have in place this year?
Oh, just I'm very ambitious, and you want to learn every day. And I kind of agree with Gary Vaynerchuk on this. It's the currency that's important, which is making money, but I think the legacy is even more important. And that's what you want to do. So you try to come up with new things all the time. You write your blog every week, and it's the process of writing the blog is just amazing. You discuss it with your colleagues, with friends, and you try to come up with something new, which is fabulous. And I want to continue to do this and create a legacy.
That's very cool. And so what other projects are you working on? We've talked about governance tomorrow. What else are you really working on?
Right now, I think I really want to figure out what the what digital means. I think we have a lot of technologies in the world, and they understand blockchain, they understand machine learning, deep learning. On the other hand, we have like the non-technologists, and they can work together. But what is lacking in this world is people that really get a head around what is happening. What does digitization mean? What does decentralization really mean? And that's something that I want to focus on. And that's also what I'm going to discuss with my students this year. So call them the futurist then, because you started with futurist. That could be a nice definition of futurist. Somebody who really gets his or her head around what's happening in the world.
Yeah, and doesn't have the past to drag them down. Like we're having to reinvent ourselves, and they're living in without the past baggage of all the stuff we talked about. That's awesome. Yeah. And then, how can we learn more about you? What are your favorite ways for the listeners to track down, learn more?
Right now, I have a weekly blog on Medium, most of the articles are published on Hackanoon.
Okay.
If you just go to www.medium.com and you type in my name, you will find me. And every week I have a new story. It's about how, digital technologies are changing the way we live, work, and play.
Very cool. And then the very last one that we always ask is, so what valuable quickfire top tip can you have? So if somebody's just listening now and they went to the end of the podcast and worked their way backwards, what one thing, what nugget could they take away about you, about the future, about what they need to think about, and just plug it into their daily life?
Yeah, no, I think, we all follow basically a predetermined path of processes and procedures. I think what you have to do is see how the digital age can automate this, and you have to create your own path in this digital world. And that means that you have to be creative. So creativity is probably the most important thing. You hear that many people say you have to be passionate about something, and that's all true. But I think creativity, being able to think out of the box and trying to create your own way in this new world, it's very exciting. It's a very exciting process, and you will love it.
Cool. So you use technology to make it so you can be more creative by getting rid of some of the boring stuff, the boring day-to-day monotonous stuff that has to be done. Very cool.
Yeah, that has to be done, but if we can automate it, it can probably be done better.
Very cool. I love your comment about Christmas being that time to shut down too.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic, man. That's why they have this song. It's the most wonderful time of the year. I play that song like 100 times during Christmas.
Very cool. So Erik, thank you very much for your time today. Everything will be in the show notes, and had a great time interviewing you, and great to have you as one of my social media and digital friends now.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us on Grow, Sell, and Retire. For more information, tools, or to book one of our team members to work with your team, business, or to speak at your event or conference, visit bartdaltonconsulting.com or email contact@bartdaltonconsulting.com. Buy the book True Gravity on Amazon. If you want to work for the rest of your life, that is your business. If you don't, that is ours.